Everyone calls retail dumb money, but in April, when like last year when the tariffs came in, retail was buying at like mass amounts when the stock market had just been pummeled. Everyone else on X, like all the institutions were saying it's over, we're going into recession and this and that. And retail was buying at like the highest rate they've ever bought, and they were so right. Like this thing came back so hard in after April, after the tariffs. Same thing happened this year with the Iran war, right? And they always are right. Like retail continues to be right. So retail provides a little bit of a floor to the market, and I think it's a good thing now.
What's up, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Market Runup. I'm your host, Erin Gambrel, but you guys know me as the Blonde Broker. Today's special guest on this episode is Kyle Reidhead. He is the co-owner and head of research at Milk Road. Let's welcome him onto the show. To kick it off, for most of the last decade, investors were obsessed with software, then they were obsessed with crypto, and now it feels like the entire market is obsessed with AI and compute. Have we entered a world where compute is becoming a more important asset than money itself?
That's a good question. Wow, starting heavy here. It's funny, for the last 3 months I've been saying buy compute, sell Bitcoin. The reason is, we always, back in 2021, everyone said corporations were going to buy Bitcoin because it's the new store of value and that's where you should put your capital. And it never really happened. I mean, some companies did, obviously, like Strategy, but it didn't really pan out. And all of a sudden now you're seeing the biggest corporations in the world. What are they doing? They're funneling all the money they possibly can into compute. And it's because not only is that a store of value right now, but it's also a productive asset. And they can actually generate income from it, whether it's from using it within their business to make their ad algorithms better, like what Meta's doing, or to build products, or to replace some of their humans. But they can also use that compute like what SpaceX is doing, which is rent it out to Anthropic and Google and make billions of dollars a month. So I think a lot of these companies are like, we don't really know what to do. We just know that we need more compute. That's what Meta's been doing. They're just spending hundreds of billions of dollars just saying, I'm just going to get as much compute as possible and we'll figure out what to do with it later. And so I am starting to think that at least the biggest corporations in the world are starting to treat compute as just a store of value, kind of like what we thought Bitcoin was. And so we've always kind of known that, sure, you want to hold some cash, but we know that that's getting inflated away. So we want to put that into something else. And right now it is compute, and it's because compute translates into intelligence, right? And so there is an infinite demand for more intelligence in any corporation, and that intelligence is getting smarter and smarter, every couple weeks. And so I think there's no better bet right now for a company that at least can afford it than to buy compute, because also compute is very hard. It's very scarce. It's very hard to get right now. It's getting very expensive to build. Eventually, we may have an abundance of compute once it goes up in space and Elon figures out what he's trying to do. But we're still many years away from that. So here on Earth, where there's a lot of restrictions to build more data centers and there's a lot of pushback from communities and from politicians, it is a very scarce asset, and it is a very productive asset. So I do think we are entering a world where, if you have extra cash, you're going to try and put it into compute in any way you possibly can. And I don't think that stops anytime soon, because as I said before, there's so much demand for intelligence. Like, we can just continue to use more and more of that as it becomes available to us. And so I just think as long as there's cash available, corporations are going to be buying more and more of this. So I do think it is kind of becoming a new form of money. Different form of money. Obviously, you're not going to use compute to buy your coffee, but it is a place to store value. And I don't think that's going to stop anytime soon.
What does that mean then for assets like Bitcoin that have traditionally been viewed as stores of value?
It puts them in a tough place. I actually think it's a big reason why Bitcoin hasn't performed as well over the last, whatever it's been, since October, I guess. I do think this is a big reason for it, because if you look at what everyone used to say about Bitcoin, is that it follows the liquidity cycle and the business cycle. And for whatever reason, Bitcoin and crypto at large have diverged from that. And, the rest of the market, the stock market anyway, has continued to go up as the liquidity cycle and the business cycle have expanded. And Bitcoin didn't. And I really think it's because the capital is going to compute. It's going into AI and not Bitcoin. Bitcoin is a momentum asset, right? It is a belief asset, and it is a place where you store your value if you believe it's going to make you more money over time. And I think a lot of people and a lot of corporations are right now not believing that's the case. I think they're believing that if I put it into AI, that's going to be a better use of my capital. And so I think it hurts Bitcoin. Now, at some point, this will change, right? There's reflexivity in markets. And so at some point, the belief will come back. And I don't know what that catalyst will be. Maybe it's the Clarity Act, which hopefully will get signed at some point in our lifetime. Yeah, I don't know what's that's going to be that's going to bring people back into Bitcoin, but I do think it will happen at some point. But right now, I see no end in sight for people continuing to just put capital into AI, because it's still very early days there. Some of us are using it in our daily lives, but not many. And as we get into the agentic world of agents, managing our money for us and doing research for us and doing, so many tasks for us within our companies, I just think we've still only just touched the surface on that. And so I just think there's so much more for us to go in this AI side of things. And I don't think that bodes well for Bitcoin, to be completely honest. Now, maybe we go into a world where, governments start spending a ton of money and things happen in the financial system. And so Bitcoin gets its moment again. I just don't know when that's going to happen.
Yeah. And we also just saw a lot of capital, I think, kind of come out of the market and shift into SpaceX, right? So we had this big mania trade, and they just completed the largest IPO in US history. For those that don't know, I think everybody kind of knows. We've already seen these retail investors pile into the stock despite concerns originally around like the valuation and the float. How much of the current excitement is about SpaceX, the business, versus maybe SpaceX simply becoming the newest retail speculation vehicle?
New trade. Yeah, so there's a couple ways to think about SpaceX. So one, we just talked about compute and AI and all this, and SpaceX is at the center of all that, right? Like, I think a lot of people think of SpaceX as just this company that puts rockets into space, but it also has, one of the largest, compute and data center business of anyone in the world, right? With Colossus, and they're building Terafab, and they're doing so much in the AI world. They also have XAI, which is one of the largest frontier models, and Grok. So they're doing so much in that space. They're renting out a lot of their data centers to compute to the biggest corporations in the world with Anthropic and Google. So they really at the center of this whole thing. Their whole goal is to start sending data centers up into space, so that we can 1,000x the amount of compute that we have here on Earth. So they're at the center of this whole thing. So the business they are building is unlike any other business, and I'm super bullish on the long term of what SpaceX is doing. They have a moat in terms of bringing things to space, and I think there's going to be entire industries rebuilt that it will exist in space that can't exist on Earth. So there's a lot that's happening there, and you've got to go down the rabbit hole to really understand it. So my assumption is SpaceX becomes the most valuable company in the world in I don't know how many years from now, and it's it's going to create entire industries up in space, and it's going to be a big deal. Now that said, it only makes about $24 billion a year right now, and it's valued IPO'd at around $2 trillion. So that doesn't make any sense, obviously. And I think, it's gone up to, I think it's at 2.5 trillion right now. It was up to almost 2.7 trillion yesterday or 2 days ago. So the valuation doesn't make sense today. And the reason that's happening, though, is because there's only 4.2% of all SpaceX shares that can be traded. Okay, the rest of it is all locked away, vested away. Kind of like if you have crypto listers here, this low float, high FDV thing that we used to all talk about was a year or two ago. That's basically what's happening in SpaceX right now. So it's not until August 5th, I think, until the investors can start to, the big funds, institutions, can start to sell their shares that they hold of SpaceX, which they will definitely sell because they're up 1,000x on this. So for now, you just have this small little portion of SpaceX that can be traded. And so, and it's not the people that have been holding SpaceX for many years that are up retail, a lot. Yeah, it's retail mainly and traders. And so I actually think that we could see this thing go a little bit crazier than most people think. So we hit 2.7 trillion. I think we can go much higher because, again, you don't need $2 trillion or $2.7 trillion to double the valuation of SpaceX. You only need a few, tens of billions to double it because, again, it's a very, very small amount that actually needs to be traded to move the price. So I could see SpaceX going crazy to 3 trillion, 4 trillion in just a short term, right? This would be a short-term trade, speculation completely. Now, once these unlocks happen coming in July/August, I do think we're probably going to see this company get re-rated back down to I don't know what, but hopefully below 2 trillion because then I'll be buying that. So it's a battle between like long-term investors who see the big picture of what SpaceX is doing and this like short-term moment where you just have this tiny little float and everyone's kind of trading it. And so who knows what's going to happen in the next couple weeks.
Let me know when you're buying again. Just be like, hey, Aaron.
I'll
But
give you a
it's
little message.
nice because I mean, like retail's back, right?
Yeah, oh, they're
Like
having fun. It's great.
between SpaceX, AI stocks, leveraged ETFs, and some of those like meme assets, like retail investors seem more active today than they have been in a few years. And I know that worried some of us. But like, what do you think are the biggest signs that maybe retail risk appetite has returned besides just SpaceX and AI
Well,
stocks?
so I'll tell you exact. We have the exact answer for you. So Milk Road is a retail media company. Okay, we focused heavily on crypto for the last number of years because crypto's been the big thing that retail loved. So we've got hundreds of thousands of newsletter subscribers, and we've got thousands of paying subscribers that follow our analyst portfolios. And over the last year, we've transitioned into creating, we still have our crypto channels, but we've also launched stock channels, all focused around AI and everything going on in the AI bottlenecks and infrastructure and all that. And right now, our crypto channels are flat. There's absolutely no growth. Okay. Our AI channels are growing at a massive rate. Like it almost reminds me of like 2021. Like for anyone that was in crypto, if you were running a media company or running anything in crypto, like in 2021, your numbers were just going crazy the entire year because retail was just funneling in, trying to learn about crypto, figuring out what to trade, what to invest in. That's what's happening on the AI side of our channel right now. But crypto is like just remaining completely dead. It's just churning out and it's flat to even down maybe. So we are seeing it firsthand just in our business. For a while there, before kind of retail came back in the AI space, our paying subs that were following our portfolios, it was churning out. It was actually going down for the first time we've had in a long time. And then all of a sudden, AI really picked up, and retail is just kind of flowing into it. And so we're starting to see some growth in our business on that side of things. So we see it firsthand. And it's funny because all the people that are coming in and signing up and checking out our AI podcast and signing up to our newsletters and paying for our analysts over on that side, they're all the people that were doing it in 2021 on the crypto side.
Yeah.
And that's not a bad thing. Retail, do whatever you guys want. I'm the same. Like I was super interested in crypto. I still am, but I know that the money and the capital is all funneling into AI right now. And so if you want to be an investor and successful in the short, medium term, you got to follow that trend, right? You got to play those momentums. And AI is obviously a big thing. And just like I think crypto will be, but that's where the hot money is right now. And so if you want to be making money in the short term, like that's where you go. And some of our analysts have made hundreds of percents in on these calls on like Nibius and on Micron, and like it's crazy what's happening over there. These things are like stocks that are like Micron's like $1 trillion stock, and it's up like 1,000% in the last like 6 months. It feels like what crypto was in 2021. So retail is definitely back, but they're in the stock market. They're not in crypto right now.
Do you think that retail enthusiasm ultimately helps or maybe hurts markets at this stage in the cycle?
It's a good question. Look, I think retail gets it right a lot. Everyone calls retail dumb money, but in April when like last year when the tariffs came in, retail was buying at like mass amounts when the stock market had just been pummeled. Everyone else on X, like all the institutions were saying it's over, we're going into recession and this and that. And retail was buying at like the highest rate they've ever bought, and they were so right. Like this thing came back so hard in after April, after the tariffs. Same thing happened this year with the Iran war, right? Retail was buying again at the dips, and they always are right. Like retail continues to be right. So retail provides a little bit of a floor to the market, and I think it's a good thing. Now, at some point, maybe retail will get cooked, just like in 2021 with the crypto markets. But right now, they've been right for years because they continue to buy dips in the market, which is like that's the game, right? Like we know that the stock market goes up only over a medium time frame or a long term time frame. And I think the retail investors are aware of that. Like they've all learned this before, that we know that the government is not going to let the stock market crash because everyone's, all of our parents' pension funds rely on that. And so the game is when it dips, you buy, and you see retail get all excited whenever things dip. So I don't know. I think it's great to see them do that. Now, there are scams and things that happen in markets that are problematic, like we saw with DATs last year. Not necessarily that they were scams, but retail bought into these things. Institutions made a bunch of money because they were able to buy it early. So like there are moments where it does suck to be retail, and they do FOMO into certain things. But overall, I mean, I think retail's making money and they're having fun doing it. So I don't know. I think it's a good thing for markets.
Which was the one that wiped? Was it Libra that like wiped out a ton of
Libra.
retail?
Uh, you mean in crypto space or a stock or what do you
Yeah,
mean?
I think it was the Libra token.
Yeah, Terra Luna. Is that what you're talking about?
Well, Terra Luna for sure.
It was like $40 billion.
For
That
sure.
was a tough one.
That was a very dark time.
Yeah.
I mean, and then we also saw a lot of retail kind of take a step back when we had the Iran risk, as premium. So like oil prices too have come down, I think, significantly from their highs, despite like ongoing uncertainty around Iran and the Strait of Hormuz, which thank gosh it's opening back up. Do you think that the markets are maybe correctly pricing geopolitical risk right now, or have investors become complacent?
Have they become complacent? I mean, they definitely don't care about Iran anymore. They're kind of over it, right? The market doesn't really care about the news that Trump
Well,
says.
the same headline every
It's
other.
yeah, it's back and forth, right? It's we've made a deal, we haven't made a deal, we've made a deal. The Strait of Hormuz is open, it's not open, and it's just like for a little bit there, the markets would react, and now everyone's just kind of forgotten about it. And I think they're right in doing that. To be honest, like I don't know if this deal they're supposed to sign something tomorrow, which is going to be like a 60-day extension. It's going to open the Strait of Hormuz. At this point, I just don't believe anything anymore, and I don't really care. I actually think what the market is looking at is they don't care about macro that much anymore. They care about AI, and they care about is the AI capex going to continue. And honestly, macro is not really the thing that's telling us is AI capex going to continue. It's is there demand for more tokens, right? Are we going to buy more of these tokens on Anthropic and on OpenAI? Is the open source models and the Chinese models going to underprice that? And that is the big scare right now. And so I think that's what people care about more than, is the Strait of Hormuz going to be opened? And so honestly, that's probably the right way to think about it, because ultimately that is what matters, right? Like all the capital right now is going into this capex. There's trillions of dollars being spent a year in capex, and so the question is, are we going to use more tokens or not? Are we going to use more AI or not? And if the answer is yes, then I think the market continues to go up, at least in the AI capex and the AI infrastructure build out side of things, which has a lot of knock-on effects for other things, right? The more we build out compute, the better these models get, the better companies get, right? The better some SaaS products get, the better, companies like Robinhood and Coinbase can let go of some of their employees and be more efficient. And so if you're looking at are companies going to improve their earnings, it really depends on are they going to use more AI or not use more AI. And so I think that matters a little bit more than the macro world does at the moment. That will change at some point. Macro will really matter and become the in thing again, like it has been sometimes. But it kind of changes back and forth. And right now it's just all about AI.
Well, it's interesting because it seems like every dollar flowing into AI infrastructure is a dollar that's like obviously it's not flowing into somewhere else. How much of crypto's underperformance is maybe simply a result of capital being redirected towards AI? Do you think it's like 50%, 80%?
I think it's a lot because the problem so again, I'm excited about crypto and what's being built there, but the problem is there's not a lot of growth. So the one big thing that crypto has that people will talk about in the media is the shining, knight of crypto is stablecoins. And if you look, stablecoins haven't grown since October of last year, right? And even when they were growing at the most, like everyone was so excited last year, me included, they grew 50% year over year, which is pretty big. But then you look at something like Anthropic, which their revenues grew 50x year over year. And you're like, okay, do I really care about a 50% growth? So it's like even the things that are happening good in crypto, there's just not enough growth to get excited about for investors, right?
Yeah.
And so I think the problem is there's not a lot to invest in over there right now because there's not a lot of growth. Now, there is a lot of exciting things with tokenization of stocks and tokenization of like treasuries and all this stuff. But again, and that's growing decent amount year over year, even today. So it's good to see that. But the problem is there's not a lot of like volumes. There's not a lot of money, revenues being made from that. And so again, I think investors are looking going, I see what crypto's doing and DeFi makes sense. And, it's rebuilding the financial infrastructure for the world. And that's great. It's just happening extremely freaking slow. There's this regulation that's holding it up and politicians holding it up. And so it's like, well, I can either put my money in that and wait for that to like explode, or I can just go over here and something that's already exploding. So I think a lot of capital is doing that. It's why retail's over there. you're seeing a lot of the big investors like Kyle Samani, for example, from, what was it, Multicoin or whatever, who like he's moved over into AI, and you're seeing a ton of these because there's a lot more things happening over there. There's a lot more growth over there. There's a lot more money sloshing around over there. And so I think it's a big reason why crypto's underperforming. And so we need to see some growth in crypto. The one thing that we've seen a bit of growth in is like perpetuals. So that's why Hyperliquid has done well. But other than that, you're just not seeing growth in anything.
I missed that train. Oh my God.
That's okay. Many did, I'm sure.
Yeah, I don't know. And then I think it just hit all-time high earlier this week or something too. But it's interesting. So my newsletter, I write about like the top 3 assets by market cap, and within the last 2 weeks, I did see Tether past Solana to make it to that number 3 spot. So you mentioned stables, and it's just like what is new and hot right now, and like you said, it's Anthropic, right? And I guess that kind of like leads me to my next question, because I do want to talk a little bit about regulation in AI. A lot of people are very confused, but like the government has clearly become increasingly involved in how frontier AI models are deployed and distributed. Do you think that we're heading into a world where access to advanced AI would require identity verification or tighter oversight?
Yeah, it's a good question. Probably. So I think there's going to be a few things that are going to happen here. One, you're going to have to KYC to use them. And then the second thing is, I think, and we had a debate about this on our AI podcast the other day, is other countries are going to start to try and run their own models and like have their own AI infra stack within their own country. So that something like what just happened in the US can't happen to them, which is the US just decided, hey, we're going to shut this down. Anthropic got to shut this down. And all of a sudden, people in other countries just can't use this like frontier model out of nowhere. It's like, well, why can't I use this just because the government in the US doesn't want us to use it? That makes no sense. So I think we're going to start to kind of distribute AI models outwards. Now, maybe that means AI is going to become more decentralized, and that could be a good thing for crypto, right? We obviously have the infrastructure to do this, and you're already seeing it with, there's a few, decentralized or distributed AI platforms like BitTensor. Venice is kind of working towards this sort of with privacy for AI. So there are some things that might come out of crypto that could be useful for this. So that's actually an exciting potential here. But I do think we're probably going to have to get some sort of KYC for AI, which, like, I don't know. I don't really mind that. I think that's probably fine. I'm not really against those kind of things. There are some people that are like, screw the government, screw everything. It's not really me. But I do think this is going to have to happen because, look, there's a lot of power in this intelligence that we're creating here, and it's only going to get more and more and more. So maybe there needs to be some control, but my hope is someone will build something decentralized where you have the option. Because the thing I've always loved about crypto is like most people are still going to use the like regulated institutions. Like my mom is still going to use her bank always, right? She's never going to like get a MetaMask wallet and use Uniswap or something to trade assets. Like she's just never going to do that because it doesn't make sense to her. And she doesn't need that. She's not doing anything. Like it just makes no sense for her to switch,
but mass
right?
adoption.
So I've always been, but the thing I want always is a choice. So like if I happen to live in a country where the banks are doing, things that don't make sense and are not great, I want the choice to be able to move my assets onto something that's decentralized, right? So I think you should have both. And so like I still use my bank, I use Coinbase, but then I also have a bunch of Bitcoin sitting on a ledger in case the worst happens here in Canada, right? So like I'm all for choice. I don't think everyone needs to have everything on a ledger and like going fully decentralized and self-custodial. And so again, same thing here with AI. Like probably many of us want to use the frontier models. And so if I have to KYC to do it, sure, I'll do that. Okay, that's fine with me. But what I would like is an option in case Anthropic does something I don't like. I want to be able to go and use, I don't know, BitTensor or something else that might not be as good of a model, but I don't have to KYC, right? Because I want to flee my country or something. So there needs to be choice. And that's the key thing that we don't have yet in AI, but well, we do. I mean, we have open source models. They're just hard, kind of like crypto, right? They're hard to figure out. You got to go and build your own infrastructure and do all this stuff. So, but I think we'll get there and we'll be able to have both.
If they do require that advanced identity verification, right, and you have to KYC, what would that impact have on innovation going forward?
Yeah, it's a good question. It probably, I don't know. It might slow down growth of, the Anthropics and the OpenAIs because people might not want to do it. But honestly, it might also increase adoption because enterprises right now are kind of struggling to onboard their companies into these models because of data and privacy and all these kind of things. So like having better regulation and better rules around it and KYC and all this might give them the ability to actually like go and onboard their thousands of people within their companies to AI. So I don't know if it's going to hurt innovation, to be completely honest. What it will do is spike a ton of innovation in the decentralized world, right? So right now you have a little bit of stuff happening in the crypto world with, again, the bit tensors and all that, but like there's not a lot of people going and building over there. There's a little bit. And I think once you have this, if this gets turned on, you're probably going to bring a bunch of innovators to go into the decentralized world. And so that might be a good catalyst for the industry, which I think that's really cool. And that'll be exciting to see. But I don't think it's going to do any of the frontier models, to be honest.
What about like when you look across all of the markets today, like stocks, AI, crypto, commodity bonds, infrastructure, private markets, what's the most mispriced asset right now?
Man, that's a tough question. I think there's a few SaaS products that are the most mispriced right now. Yeah, because the whole sector got completely cooked. And I think I run two companies. And when the whole sector got cooked, we were also trying to rebuild all of our SaaS products with AI. It's freaking hard to build SaaS products, even if you're using AI. And then even if you can do it, then you have to keep up with it, which is also not easy, right? And so like, should you go build your own CRM or should you just use Salesforce? For most people, honestly, you should probably just use Salesforce because it's way better than anything you're going to build. And the upkeep, it actually is quite costly to run your own CRM and like build these products. So I think a lot of people got that wrong, and a lot of companies are realizing that right now. And so when you look at the growth of these SaaS products that got absolutely wrecked over the last couple quarters, they're still growing at insane rates. Like their earnings are going up, their user base is still growing. Like they have not been impacted at all, even though the market absolutely crushed them. Now, some of them are probably never coming back. So don't get me wrong, like probably like 90%. But I think there are certain assets within that sector that need to be repriced back upwards because they're just growing and growing. And they're actually, the thing is, agents also need software, right? They need CRMs, right? They need databases. They need governance tools. Like they need a lot of things to work. And they're better to go do their own things rather than kind of build that software themselves. And so you actually want companies that are like, my whole focus is to build a CRM and be really good at building a CRM. Because if you're out, I don't know, you're a pharmaceutical company, you don't know how to build a CRM. And yes, you can get an agent to build like a decent CRM, but like then you've got to go and hire a team that's like going to consistently improve that CRM. Whereas Salesforce, like they've just done this for like, I don't know, 25 years or whatever, like probably they're going to be better at that than you, and they're going to figure out how to do it for agents and so on and so forth. So I do think there are some SaaS products and companies that are just so undervalued right now. I don't know when the market's going to realize that because I've been wanting to buy Salesforce for a while here, but it just keeps going down, so I haven't bought it yet. But ServiceNow is another one that I think is like, they're basically becoming a SaaS product for agents.
ServiceNow?
Yeah, ServiceNow. And so I just think there are some really good opportunities in SaaS, which is funny because I know everyone thinks it's completely dead.
Yeah, I actually have a product that I need someone to build, and I guess with agents I could do it myself. But like you said, if you're going to build something, like why would not build it the best or have someone who actually sits and builds these? But I need a product where when I'm traveling, like you and I know in media, we travel to XYZ amount of conferences a year, and it gets exhausting, and you miss some maybe follow-up calls or connections get lost in the bag and your phone. I want to be able to take a picture of those connections and people that you meet or someone that you took a selfie with and have it all be inputted into one CRM and categorize it and structure it and like, okay, who's building an AI, who's a VC, who's an investor, like, and then maybe ranked on like importance of the conversation for some sort of follow-up and like help. Maybe I'll do it.
You can do that with a Hermes agent today or OpenClaw.
Yeah, I can probably do that with Airtable or Codex or something like.
Yeah. Hermes agent connected to Codex, and you just like have a Telegram chat with your Hermes agent. You just put it in your Telegram, the picture, and then it'll go and put it wherever you want. You could do that easily.
Oh, okay, easy. Cool. Okay, well then
But
That's
it'll
interesting.
probably use, the thing is, it'll use a CRM like, I don't know, Salesforce, or like you said, Airtable. Like it'll go, or Notion or something. It'll connect it into things that already exist, right?
Yeah,
It's not
it's
going to go
not
build a
making a
CRM
new.
for you. So again, bullish reason for why I think not all SaaS is dead, and they're going to exist in this world.
Well, okay, so we're talking about AI. We're talking about SpaceX. If you look to stocks that are near highs, we have SpaceX is being valued like a generational winner. I'm super excited. AI is attracting enormous capital. Crypto struggling. What's the consensus view that investors believe today that you think will be completely wrong 12 months from now? Like we just fast forward and look a year from now.
Oh, dang. That's a good question. What's the consensus view? I think the consensus view is that Anthropic and OpenAI are going to be these like incredibly successful companies, and that everyone should buy the IPOs. And I disagree. I think that the models are being commoditized, and kind of similar to what happened with crypto back in like 2021, 2022, where there was like everyone thought block space was going to be like the most, like the best thing in the world, and then it just became commoditized, and just like, Solana launched, and then Monad launched, and then Sui launched, and it's just like block space became super super cheap, and we just had so much block space. I kind of think that these like tokens, and these LLMs and these models, they're going to be commoditized, and so I think it's going to be a tough business for Anthropic and OpenAI, who, in order to keep serving their product, they have to spend tens of billions, hundreds of billions of dollars on data centers and compute and power. And yet their product to serve that is actually just going to get cheaper and cheaper over time. I think it's going to be a tough business to run. They have more of like a capital allocation business than they are an AI model business. And so I think it's going to be a struggle for them. And SpaceX is probably going to buy one of them in the coming years to keep them alive. But I think it's going to be a struggle for those two. And yet everyone else thinks they're going to become like the two biggest companies in the world. So I think that's probably my consensus view. That's not to say I think they will do well for now in the near term, but I do think at some point it's a tough business for them to run, I think.
No, it's interesting. Like we'll just do another episode in a year
The world will be very different.
to see what happens. I mean, well, like speaking of that, this is kind of a fun question, but talking about a SpaceX, if you could send one thing into space, what would you send up into space? Because I would send my ex-boyfriend.
That's a hilarious question. I have no idea. I've never thought about this before. If I could, I mean, I don't know, myself.
Yeah, I know.
Like I'd like to at least go up there and check it out one time and like take a picture of the Earth. I think it'd be pretty
I was
sick.
jealous of Kim Kardashian, that whole Blue Origin group, or Katy. No, it's Katy Perry, right? It's Katy
I
Perry.
don't. Yeah, I don't know who. I have no idea. But yeah, I don't know what I'd set up there. But like, someone asked me the other day if I would go up to space, and honestly, I don't know if I would right away, like anytime soon. But it'd be pretty sick. Like I'm pretty excited. I hope that like in my lifetime I can, which I'm sure we will be. But
Yeah,
um,
same. Yeah, we have data centers we need to go visit.
yeah.
All right. Well, this is my last question, my favorite question that I like to ask my guests, and I really appreciate you taking the time to come on. But I have to know, and my audience has to know, what is the legacy that you, Kyle, want to leave behind on this world?
Jesus. Uh, that's a crazy question. Well, I am having a baby in November. Uh,
Congrats! Oh my god,
and
congrats!
so, and this will be my first. So I think, being a great parent and raising a great child, I think is one of the things that is where, my mind is starting to change too. It used to always be about, okay, think about running companies and making money. And while all those things are still very important to me now, it's like, okay, I'm going to be a father. I'm going to raise a family. And so I think, raising a great family and having kids that are amazing people and great humans is, the thing that I'm going to care about the most.
No, I love that, and I think a lot of people spend so much time neglecting, either like we chase three things in life, right? We chase love, wealth, and health. And I think people sacrifice two of those to chase one. I know I myself struggle with like relationships because I'm always working. Like I want to work and chase the bag, but at some point I think, having a family is everything. Like
Yeah.
I've been taking care of my my niece, she's a baby now, for my sister-in-law. And so I'm getting a little bit of that experience. And I think it's going to be so exciting for you guys. Being a father is awesome, especially a new dad.
Yeah, it's going to be crazy. I'm excited though.
No, you got this. You got this. But that was a wonderful answer too. And I really appreciate you coming on the Market Run Up. And we'll do it again.
Let's do it in a year from now, but maybe sooner.
Yeah.
The world changes too fast. To think in years
we'll see what happens with this year. It's going to be a crazy one. And then we'll definitely have good updates for all of you listening in. But that was it for this episode. If you guys enjoyed, give us a like, follow, subscribe, and we will see you all next week.